Hey, what's up everybody? Jason here. Thanks for checking out the channel today. So I'm going to show you how you can test your backend workflow API integrations using an application called Postman. So if you're new to this might seem a little bit overwhelming, but it's pretty simple. So you've got some data from some other system you want to put into Bubble. This is how you can build and test all of your Bubble stuff without having to build the full integration. So I'm not going to get into security and authorization and all that stuff. I'm just going to show you how you can quickly get up and running using some third-party API to get data into your Bubble system. So there's a couple of things you need to be aware of. First, number one, you do need to be on a paid account. So if you go into settings and then API, if you are not on a paid account, you'll see a message from Bubble that says you can test this for free, but then you have to upgrade to deploy. Spoiler alert, it doesn't work at all. The Postman application just sends an error no matter what you try, even if you're sending to the test site. So you do have to be on a paid plan. Hopefully by the time you're watching this, they correct that bug because it's pretty annoying. And this is the URL that you're going to send stuff to through Postman. So make sure you have that enabled in your backend, and that's all you need to do right now for Bubble. So let's take a look at the Postman interface. So Postman's very, very simple. I'm just going to create a new one here. So you can download this for free from the links in the description, and you're going to end up with a screen like this, and it's very, very simple. So this is the type of request that you want to do, and we're only going to worry about these two, get and post. These are the ones you'll probably use the most. Get means go get me information from this system. Post means send this information to some system. Now, given we want to send information from bands in town to Bubble, we're going to use post, and we're going to need to use this URL. And I'm going to paste that in. Now, if you just paste this in and hit send, it's going to say, nope, sorry, we can't do this because we haven't really done anything. This is just a generic Bubble error that's coming back because we haven't told it what backend workflow to connect to. So in order to do that, we're going to need to go into our backend workflows and click on the workflow tab. And then I've created something here just called artist events. So this is the name we're going to add to the end of that URL. So here's the workflow name, artist events. I want to expose this as a public workflow, can be run without authentication. We want to ignore the privacy rules. Definitely do not do this on a live site. This is, again, just to test getting information into Bubble quickly so you can build your Bubble workflow and your UI and all that kind of stuff, and then you could hook up the API later. And obviously you're going to have to do both of those things, but at least to get you familiar with how this works, you can just quickly start by doing this. Now you have to choose how that workflow will be triggered. We're going to trigger that with a post, again, because we're sending data into Bubble. And then you can choose how you want the parameters to be defined. So there's a manual detection. This means if you were going to pass certain parameters to Bubble and you knew what they were, you could list them here manually. I'm not going to do that. I want to detect it. So I want to detect the data package that is being sent from whatever API I'm connecting to, and I want to include the headers in the detected data. So now that this is set up, when I click detect data, Bubble changes the URL to the exact one that you're going to need to send. So this is your base workflow URL, that's the name of the backend workflow, and then it adds this word initialize to it. So now we can go into Postman and we can test this out. Okay, so what I expect to see is just, yes, we've accepted your request. And there we go. So yes, the success, it's been initialized successfully, but now if we go back into Bubble, all we're going to get is the headers that come back. So it's going to say, this is the IP it came from, country of origin, whatever headers that third-party application sends back, and it will also show you the raw data that comes back. So this is just grabbing the headers. It's not actually grabbing any of the data that I want. So now I'm going to show you how to do that. So let's hit cancel for now, and let's go to the bands in town. Now I want to grab the message that bands in town will send back. So I'm just going to copy this whole thing. So when you request a list of events for an artist, this is what it sends back. Now that I have the message, I'm going to go into body. So there's a few different ways you can set up sending information from Postman. Sometimes it's query string parameters. Authorization tab is where you're going to set up the API key or the authorization, which we're not going to worry about for right now. And then any custom headers, values you want to put in there, you can put in. We're just going to focus on body and raw. So we just want to send that raw information from bands in town to Bubble. So if I paste this in, and then now if I hit run, I'm going to get an error message down here that says Bubble is not in initialization state. So it says, nope, it's not in initialization mode because I have the word initialize here. If I got rid of that and now I hit send, it's going to say accepted. So Bubble has accepted the request, and it didn't send a response because I didn't set up a response in it. So let's put this back to initialize. Let's leave that in here. Now I'm going to go back to Bubble and click on detect data again. So now it's ready to receive that information. I'm going to go back to Postman and I'm going to hit send again. And now I get a different message. So that endpoint was successfully initialized. Now I'm going to get the opportunity for Bubble to automatically detect the data that comes in, and now I can choose what to do with this. So I've got the ID of that record, I've got whatever the artist ID is, the URL to that artist, and a bunch of other metadata here. So now I can choose what I want to do with this. So it's important that if you want to use dates inside of Bubble, see it defaults everything to text. So the on sale date, I want to make sure I change that type to date. Date and time, I'm guessing that is, doesn't say what it is in the API there, but probably in their description documentation it will. But basically all you want to do is map these fields to whatever data is coming back. I don't know if this would actually work, but you could put geographic address and see if this actually does work because it's sending you map information for that particular event. If, for example, you are storing a list of countries and states, then you could choose whatever basic types you want, or you could choose an option set, basically anything. So in this state, you're basically just going to map any of those values from the data that's coming from Postman into your Bubble app, and then now you can use all of those things in your workflow. Now this is going to allow me to at least test getting data into Bubble to see what it does. Now I would have to have some mapping set up, so I would need to store the ID of the artist in the API in Bands in Town to the artist record in my database so I can match those up. You don't want to rely on text and names and stuff like that. So you would have to do something basically to set that up first. As an example, let's just say I wanted to attach a list of those events to the artist. The first thing I'm going to need to do is I'm going to have to update my artist table, and I'm going to need to store the Bands in Town ID. And this is going to be text. And basically that's what is going to allow me to take that information and then update information in my Bubble app. So I'll go back to backend workflow, and actually let's just update one of these artists. So with the test data that I have here, I have the artist ID here. I'm going to copy that, and I'm just going to update one of my records to use that. So let's just update ACDC. So now that I've mapped those fields, I can do whatever I want with that data. So I want to make changes to a thing, and I want to do a search for the artists where the Bands in Town ID equals whatever is coming back from that third-party API. So in this case, it's going to be the request data body, and let's go first item, artist ID. And I want to pick the first item here. So this should grab that first record that I set up the test data, and I'll just need to update one of the fields. And let me just make a new field, call it event data, set it as text, and then I'm just going to randomly pick something from this request data's body. Let's just pick the first item. And let's just say, let's just pick the venue name for now just to make it simple. So now if I go back to my data, let me take the bio out of here so it's a little bit easier to see. So this is the bands in town ID that matches my test data. So this is going to get populated with the venue once I resend this. So first I need to go back to Postman and I need to get rid of initialize up here at the top because it's already initialized. Now I just want to send this data into Bubble and see what it does. So success, it gave me a success message. If I go back to Bubble, refresh my data, it's now stored that artist information in there. So this is a simple way. Obviously there's a lot more work to do when you want to actually create the full integration. So for example, I would probably have to create an admin page that says, go get me a list of artists that have the name of the artists in my Bubble system. It will return a bunch of records and then you'd have to connect them up so the artist IDs match. So there is a bunch of extra work to do, but at least for getting up and running quickly and testing your Bubble app, or even once you've got stuff created, using Postman can save you a whole bunch of time of having to log in and out of these third-party systems and resend messages and stuff. So hopefully this helped you out. Links in the description to all the stuff you need to know in order to do this. Remember to hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.